Welcome to the Babies in Business Podcast. Join your hosts, Rachel and Avram Gonzales, real-life parents and business partners. Each week on Babies in Business, Rachel and Avram create a space for entrepreneurial parents to find their own way. They'll dive into insights on topics like leadership, efficiency, self-awareness, budgeting, and human psychology as they nurture their family and build their business. Here's your hosts, Avram and Rachel.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Babies in Business Podcast. We're trying to use our indoor voices today, recording with the baby on Rachel's lap chest. He's snoozing. We got a fun episode for you today. Today marks 6 months since we applied a new podcast promotion strategy, and we can't wait to share it with you.
Yeah, we're really excited.
Yeah. Now, whether you have a podcast or not, doesn't really matter. The reason that we did this experiment was to show you the power of setting new goals, adjusting strategies, and then making changes based off of what you observe. So today, we're going to share with you the results of what we discovered and the changes to our strategy that we're going to make moving forward. And then we're going to look back again in 6 months. So I think it's like a fun demo of this process in action. We just happen to be using it for the podcast. Let's get into it. Our goal was to double the total downloads of the podcast in 6 months. And so there's some numbers that we want to share with you here. And if you haven't listened to it, could be very fun for you to go back, listen to episodes 27, 28, 30, and 32. I'll share those again later. 27, 28, 30, and 32, going over, where we started with our strategy, why we changed it. We go into a ton of detail about how we built processes around it, how we chose the goals that we chose, tons of analysis. So go back and check that out. The numbers that I think are really interesting. Oh, actually, we're not going to share the numbers yet. Our strategy before was to heavily promote on social media.
Yes. Oh gosh, and it took so much time. Actually, a lot of your time, most of your time. So that's the hard part, is in everything that we're doing with our business, we want to have less time for you doing things, and we need to free up your time. So it was very time intensive, but very little result. So that's kind of why we were inspired to change up our strategy.
Yes, because we were constrained on time. Baby was on the way. Baby's here now.
Yep.
We knew that we weren't going to have more time. And we were also struggling with, you've been hearing the podcast now, we've been struggling with childcare for some time.
Yeah.
And so, we weren't going to get more time back. So it's just, how can we get the same result or better with less time?
And really, also the question is, what do we have to lose? We weren't getting growth or anything like that. So for all the time that we spent, it really didn't get a great result.
Yep. And so we decided to shift our strategy and focus on coming up with better topics.
Yep.
Based off of what people might search for. So we're going to use our strengths as an SEO, a search engine optimization company, and choose topics that people are already searching for. So we have the chance of being discovered.
Right.
But also choosing topics that we felt like if somebody saw it, they'd be very interested.
Right. Something that's catchy or something like, I'd like to see a little bit more about that.
So we spent much more time and intention coming up with the topics, doing some research for them, and then prepping them.
Right.
And that's really where we focused the time. We also did some SEO work on the website itself, and here is what we found. All right.
The numbers are pretty telling.
So like we said, we got close to hitting our goal. All right. So check this out. When we started the experiment, we were at 1,491 downloads. Right there at 1,500. And that was in the first 27 episodes. Since then, in the last 6 months, we've published 12 more episodes, and we have accumulated another 1,472 downloads.
So a little bit less than 20.
We were like 19 downloads away, and we did that in less than half the episodes published.
That's pretty staggering, I think. When we went over these numbers, I was blown away with the success that we've had in less than half of the episodes. And would you say less than half of the work How much did we cut the work down?
Probably cut the work by 33% because
Okay.
here's what happened also. I could not help myself. There were so many good clips and things and quotes
Sure.
from these episodes that I actually still did some of the social media, even though I cut the time down. The
Sure.
goal was to cut it completely in half.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to do
Well,
that.
well,
I still got caught up.
Well, and I think that we can give you a pass on that because I know you really enjoy it. It's something that feeds your soul. So while we didn't have a ton of time, it was something that helped you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no loss there.
No loss. Before, the average episode would get about 55 downloads. Now we're averaging 84 downloads per episode.
That statistically is high.
Yeah, I mean,
Or percentage-wise?
Percentage-wise.
That's a lot to get that much more.
Yeah, almost 50% more downloads occurring now, and so I think there is momentum at play. We want to share some of the insights, things that we learned next. You know, the question is, did the strategy work?
No. Because we didn't actually do the strategy that we set out to do.
No, not totally.
Not totally.
Not totally. You know, I wanted to possibly break out sub clips from each podcast that might be more SEO friendly and keeping
Right.
them bite sized. And it's just so much work.
Right. And the whole thing was less work.
Less work.
Less effort to see if we can get more results.
So it's like interesting. We hit our goal, but it wasn't necessarily because of the strategy that we had out to do.
Correct.
At least not what we thought. I think choosing better topics was a big deal. And so here's what we did learn. Okay. If you look at the chart, and here's what I like to do. If you go to babiesandbiz.com/40, like 40, that'll take you directly to the website and you get the show notes. That works for any episode, / whatever the episode number is, that'll take you to the website and get all the show notes and resources. We're going to put a graph on there, the chart, that shows you how downloads occurred in the last 6 months.
Yeah. And we did notice a pattern. The pattern was significant. It was in spikes.
Huge spikes with very small growth, or what appears like very small growth in between.
Right. And then we kind of dug in and we're like, okay, so why are these spikes occurring and when are they occurring?
We assumed that it would be around new episode drops.
That was not the case.
It was not the case. There were some times when it was like 2 days before an episode drop. It just wasn't
It was
around
like
that.
kind of the beginning of the month too.
Also around the
So,
beginning of the month.
you know, there were some patterns that we saw.
And what we realized in digging into it much further is that all the spikes came from targeted promotion of the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. And so
And that was something that we noticed early on, and we just didn't have the time every single time we drop one to do it every single time.
So we will be moving forward. One of the biggest things is us creating and posting stories to our Facebook stories, Instagram stories, so that our warm network can see the episodes and discover them that way, right? So not just resharing the episode thumbnail of the announcement, but sharing something on video talking about why somebody would want to tune in.
And both of us are committing to that, mostly me, because Avram is excellent at that. He will get on video, one take, done. He's putting it up on social media. For me, it's like, no takes. I haven't done that at all. I guess I'm terrified of it, maybe. But also, it's like, I'm breastfeeding my baby. When am I going to have that time? There's so many things that get in my head. So I'm committing to actually getting on video and promoting the podcast when the podcasts drop. That means one time a week, I'll be stretching that muscle, which is going to be probably really cringy to begin with. But you don't grow if you don't try it.
Yeah.
So that's my commitment to helping our podcast grow.
One of the advantages that I have on that end is that I will listen to the episode so that I can generate the copy for the announcement. Right. And so Rachel also is at a disadvantage because she hasn't heard it since we recorded it. They could have been months ago.
Right.
Okay. So
yeah, there's multiple things going on.
Yeah. So we'd see some smaller spikes around personal promotion, but here's where the huge spikes occurred. When there was a hot topic, either on my own Facebook post, I'd ask an open-ended question and then the conversation would evolve. and then I would insert a podcast link to a relevant episode. That's when we got some really huge spikes. There was one post that my friend Danny Barrera made about waking up early, like at 5 a.m., like the miracle morning. And I made this joke about the miracle morning and why it was created. And then I posted our podcast about the power hour.
Yeah.
We got so many downloads that day because the joke was funny. It was super relevant. And then Danny's got a bigger audience than we do.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. And so, and his friends are cool people. They like cool things. They checked out our podcast.
Yeah.
Another thing that we noticed was we did another episode around like working with your spouse.
Yes.
There was a conversation that I'd started on Facebook a couple months ago. Reignited that. Yeah. Could you work with your spouse? Reignited that conversation, dropped the podcast link, and then a bunch of people went and downloaded it. So here's what I learned from that. When you ask people, how do you promote your podcast? People are going to say you promote it on social media.
Yeah.
And in my mind, that meant we need to create new social media content.
Sure.
Just like Gary Vee, to feature our stuff.
Sure.
That strategy is sound, but it's really good and most effective when you're on video.
Sure.
And we didn't have that. Plus,
Sure.
we didn't have the time.
Right.
But what we realized from this is promotion means taking this piece of content and finding ways to get it in front of the right people at the right time for them to be able to consume it.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
the whole podcast.
For sure. Yeah.
And some of the people that like the short clips don't ever go listen to the podcast.
It's true. That's all they consume of the content.
Of the content. And the goal is downloads. The goal is creating more of this long form content, people getting to know us being able to build some influence in an audience.
Right.
Right. That's all part of the bigger picture here. So here's what we're going to do moving forward with what we learned here. All right. We're going to do another 6-month test. We're going to move to 1 episode a week.
We are so excited about this because we will be able to create so much more content and have it put out there and not do any work. Really.
Not do all that extra work.
All we're going to do is we're actually going to do only the announcement for the podcast drop. That's it. And then, like we've already said, we're going to do the promotion for that episode. So a video or story, but it will contain a video each time.
Yeah. Right? So none of that extra activity because we just noticed that, we posted something like 74 new reels, graphics, things like that to our Instagram page, 74 new posts, and the page grew by about 3 followers.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's rough.
It's
rough spending all that time and the content's not reaching a lot of people. That means that something's missing. So we're not going to come back to this until we have more resources and it makes sense.
Yeah, correct. But also it's just, this was a passion project and still is. Mm-hmm. And we want to, it would be really great for people to hear this content too. 'Cause if you have a business, you have family, you have kids, small kids, these topics really are relevant.
Yeah.
And they're things that maybe don't get talked about all the time. So,
well, where else can you consume content about running a business that also takes into account you having a small family at home?
that nuance
and that challenge. That's what this podcast is all about. It's that kind of like that balance between the two worlds and playing full out in both.
Yeah.
And we just need to create more of this stuff that we like talking about, creating more resources for folks with new episodes.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be spent on social media.
Yeah.
One other side note that I wanted to mention is the website traffic barely changed, even though we updated all the foundational SEO type work. Geeky part of that's worth sharing is podcasts themselves living on your website. They're not search friendly. Like when somebody is looking for information about a particular topic, they're looking for that skimmable article where they can dig into parts of it. So in order to make the website work, I think we would need to create other blog posts and stuff that feed into our podcasts.
Sure.
And so the initial strategy of just posting it, putting the transcripts on there and doing some of the basic stuff was not enough.
Yeah.
We're also looking at we're going to take the commercial out of the middle of the
Correct.
podcast because people aren't responding to it. I think it's a really great audio that we've provided,
Sure.
but either it's not interesting or people are simply just not interested in, or they forget to go back and download it, like they're listening in their car.
For whatever reason.
For whatever
Doesn't
reason.
even matter.
It's just not working. And why not just spend more time delivering the content that you want to listen to?
Yeah.
Anything else, babe?
I just love this experiment because we got to check something out, change it up, and see the results from changing something. It's kind of brilliant having that time of 6 months. And I think that when we were doing this, we thought, this can apply to so many different things in your life. Like, when is it necessary to change up a strategy? I mean, there's like a dating strategy, if you're single, or there's different things. What isn't working, maybe look at what isn't working and then choose what to change up. So I just love that it can apply to other things.
Mm-hmm. So again,
time,
it's worth going and backtracking to episodes 27, 28, 30, and 32 to witness the whole process and what went into it. Yeah. I think it's pretty interesting. And there were quite a few people that reached out and said, that was awesome. I'm going to come back to this episode every time I need to switch things up or every time I want to plan a new initiative and make sure it happens. The resources and stuff we put in there, some of our best that we've provided.
Yeah.
So we're excited to see what the next 6 months brings. We will be doing another recap early 2025. That just sounds wild. It seems so far away. But we'll be another 24, 25 episodes deep by then, and we'll be able to see where we're at. Be interesting to notice.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks for joining us today for the Babies in Business podcast. You got questions, you can reach us via email, hello@babiesandbiz.com. You can also go to the website, babiesandbiz.com. Find us on social media at babiesandbizpod. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know if you got something special from this particular episode. If you got a podcast, we'd love to hear about it, how you might be changing things up for yourself moving forward or not. We'd love to know. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Babies in Business podcast. Who do you know that would benefit from hearing this episode? Share it with them and post about it on social media. You can find the show notes for this episode, free downloads, and connect with the rest of the community at babiesandbiz.com. We'll see you next time.